Shackleton's epic of survival. The ship, the ice, impossible journey. Welcome to Wonder World, where we dive into the most incredible true stories of human endurance and the indomitable spirit of adventure. Today we're journeying back to a time when the world's last great wilderness, Antarctica, was still largely unknown, and into a story that defies belief. A tale not of conquest, but of survival, leadership, and a journey so harrowing it became a legend. His goal? To be the first to cross the entire Antarctic continent on foot. It was an audacious plan, filled with peril. What unfolded was a far greater adventure, one where the true triumph lay not in achieving the goal, but in the miraculous act of simply coming home alive. This is the story of Sir Ernest Shackleton and his Imperial Transantarctic expedition, launched in 1914. A three-masted barkentine, it was designed to withstand the crushing pressure of the pack ice, with a hull of stout oak and greenheart timbers. On August 8, 1914, just days after the outbreak of World War I, the Endurance set sail from Plymouth, England, with a crew of 28 men, including the legendary photographer Frank Hurley, whose incredible images would immortalize their ordeal. The dream and the departure. A bold ambition. The South Pole had just been conquered. But Shackleton, ever the visionary, had a grander ambition. A 1,800-mile traverse of the entire continent, from the Weddell Sea to the Ross Sea. They had supplies for 2 years, sled dogs, a keen sense of adventure, and perhaps most importantly, Shackleton himself. A charismatic leader known for his optimism, his ability to inspire, and his unwavering loyalty to his men. He called it the last great journey on Earth. The early 20th century was the golden age of Antarctic exploration. They held out hope that the spring thaw would release them. But the Antarctic ice had other plans. For months, the ship drifted helplessly, carried by the currents of the Weddell Sea. Further, they played football on the ice, hunted seals and penguins for food, and tried to maintain morale. Frank Hurley, with incredible foresight, even lowered his camera to photograph the ship under the ice, capturing its surreal beauty before its demise, and further from their original landing site. By October 1915, the ice, now thick and immense, began to exert tremendous pressure. The Endurance, designed to withstand crushing forces, was finally succumbing. His ship, the Endurance, was specially built for ice. Spirits were high, trapped. The ice begins its grip. Shackleton's new mission: survival. His leadership philosophy became crystal clear. His men's lives were paramount. As the Endurance pushed south into the Weddell Sea, the ice began to close in. Shackleton ordered the killing of the sled dogs to conserve food. An agonizing decision, but a necessary one. The ship's timbers groaned, splintered, and cracked under the relentless squeeze. They launched their 3 small lifeboats, the James Caird, the Dudley Docker, and the Stankham Wills, into the frigid, treacherous waters of the Southern Ocean. It was a heartbreaking sight. After 281 days trapped, their magnificent vessel was destroyed, eventually sinking beneath the ice. Their dream of a transcontinental journey was over. Initially, it was a nuisance, slowing their progress. Their hands were raw, their bodies frozen. Frank Worsley, their navigator, performed miracles, calculating their position with only fleeting glimpses of the sun and stars. But the ice was too treacherous, constantly breaking up, forcing them to camp again. The physical toll was immense, but the psychological toll of the endless, uncertain wait was perhaps even greater. It was the first time they had stood on firm land in 497 days, but it was only a temporary haven. But by January 1915, they encountered unusually heavy pack ice. On January 19th, the Endurance became inextricably stuck. Shackleton, ever the pragmatist, knew they were in trouble. He called it a trying time, but maintained a positive front for his men. Shackleton knew what he had to do. He would take 5 men, including Worsley and veteran seaman Tom Crean, in their smallest, most seaworthy lifeboat. The 22.5-foot James Caird, an attempt to sail 800 miles across the stormiest ocean on Earth to the whaling stations of South Georgia Island. The crew settled into a routine. On April 24, 1916, the 6 men pushed off, leaving 22 desperate men behind on Elephant Island with the promise of return. What followed was a 17-day nightmare. Shipwrecked. She's going down. But the beautiful, silent drift was slowly turning deadly. 1916. But there was a new problem. They had landed on the uninhabited side of the island, separated from the whaling stations by a formidable, unmapped mountain range and treacherous glaciers. On October 27th, Shackleton gave the order to abandon ship. "She's going down," he reportedly cried. Ice built up on the boat, threatening to sink it. For 36 continuous hours without sleep, proper climbing gear, or a map, they trekked across glaciers, down sheer icy slopes, and through snow-covered peaks. They were perpetually wet, cold, and sleep-deprived, navigating by sheer instinct and Worsley's incredible skill. Finally, on May 20th, 1916, they heard the whistle of a whaling station. Now, 28 men were stranded on a vast, shifting ice floe, thousands of miles from civilization. With 3 lifeboats and whatever supplies they could salvage, the march, the camps, the boats, a desperate hope. For months, they camped on the ice. First, Ocean Camp right beside their sunken ship, then Patience Camp as they drifted. It took him 4 attempts, battling against ice, bad weather, and uncooperative ships over 3 long months. They tried to march across the ice, dragging their heavy lifeboats, hoping to reach open water. In the most dangerous lifeboat journey in history, not a single man was lost. Every single member of Shackleton's crew came home alive. It remains one of the most astonishing feats of survival and leadership in the annals of exploration. Shackleton taught us that sometimes the greatest victory lies not in reaching your intended destination, but in navigating the unexpected storms and bringing your team through them safe and sound. It became a masterclass in leadership, resilience, and the sheer, unyielding power of the human spirit. Finally, on August 30th, 1916, aboard the Chilean tug Yelcho, Shackleton reached Elephant Island. And if you want to explore more tales of incredible human achievement, be sure to like this video and subscribe to Wonder World. His men, emaciated but alive, were waiting. Finally, in April 1916, after 497 days adrift on the ice, their floe began to disintegrate beneath them. It was time. Elephant Island. A tiny respite for 5 brutal days and nights. Battling gale-force winds, crushing waves, and constant exposure. The 28 men rowed and sailed through the icy ocean. Their destination, Elephant Island, a tiny, desolate, covered speck of land that offered no hope of rescue, but at least solid ground. With no outside communication, no one knew they were alive, let alone where they were. Rescue was impossible unless they could summon it themselves. The James Caird. An impossible voyage. This is where the legend truly begins. Shackleton decided on the most audacious gamble of his life. They reinforced the tiny boat as best they could, using salvaged materials. They battled mountainous seas, near-constant freezing spray, hurricane-force winds, and the terrifying threat of capsizing. It was one of the greatest feats of open-boat navigation in maritime history. South Georgia crossing. The final hurdle against all odds, the James Caird, landed on South Georgia Island on May 10th. Exhausted, Shackleton, Worsley, and Crean embarked on another impossible journey. The first known crossing of South Georgia's interior. Their clothing was in tatters, their bodies pushed beyond human limits. But the thought of their waiting comrades on Elephant Island drove them on. They had made it. The impossible was achieved. The rescue, Shackleton's unbreakable promise. But Shackleton's ordeal wasn't over. He now faced the immense challenge of rescuing the 22 men still stranded on Elephant Island. His determination was unwavering. He promised his men he would return, and he would not rest until every single one was safe. Incredibly, after nearly 2 years trapped in the Antarctic, after their ship was crushed, after enduring months on ice floes, Shackleton's Imperial Trans-Antarctic expedition didn't achieve its primary goal of crossing the continent. But in a far more profound way, it succeeded beyond measure. His famous quote, "By endurance we conquer," rings true, not just for his ship, but for the spirit of every man on that incredible journey. What an extraordinary story. What aspects of Shackleton's leadership inspire you the most? Share your thoughts in the comments below.